You went silent, not to punish him, not to play games, but because something in you broke open and healed at the same time. You stopped speaking into the void. You stopped explaining your worth. You stopped begging to be felt. And now, he feels you more than ever. It's strange, isn't it? How your silence suddenly echoes louder than all your love once did. How your absence reveals what your presence could never teach. He feels the shift. He doesn't understand it, but it's unraveling him. He used to count on your energy always being there, quiet, soft, patient, waiting. But now the field is still, and in that stillness, he meets the version of himself he's been avoiding. Have you felt that magnetic tension in the air lately? That strange sensation that, even without reaching for him, something is shifting. That maybe, just maybe, he's finally beginning to feel what it means to lose your light. Because this isn't just silence, it's truth. And truth is always louder when nothing is said. He thought silence would be a relief. He told himself it meant peace. That maybe, finally, the emotional waves had stopped crashing over him. That your voice, whether heard or just felt in the field, had faded. That the intensity between you had been handled, that you had moved on. But that's not what's happening, not at all. Because what he's feeling now is louder than when you were reaching for him. And it's breaking him. He didn't expect this kind of silence. He thought your absence would bring space, comfort, control. He thought it would mean freedom. But instead, it's a haunting. He hears echoes in the places where you used to exist. He feels your warmth in moments where there should be nothing. He walks into rooms and remembers your energy without even knowing why. It's not that you said goodbye. You didn't slam any doors. You didn't curse him or try to force closure. But something in the field collapsed. And now there's a void. One he can't fill. One he didn't prepare for. One he didn't believe would ever exist. Because deep down, he believed you'd always wait. But you didn't. You shifted, and in that shift, you reprogrammed everything. The chase ended. The cycle broke. The energetic cord that once carried your unconditional presence, even in the silence, now carries stillness, clarity, detachment, and that stillness is unbearable to him. Have you ever felt your own silence feel louder than your love? Have you ever stopped reaching and suddenly noticed how much weight your energy was carrying for both of you? Do you feel it now? that strange ache in your chest that isn't grief but truth, because he does. He feels it in his skin, in his breath, in the parts of his body that used to light up when he felt your vibration near. But now that light is missing, and he doesn't understand why it hurts this much. Why, when you finally stopped speaking to his own soul has started screaming back. This is the part no one prepared him for. Not the distance, but the mirror. Because your silence is a mirror. It's not cold. It's not revenge. It's revelation. It shows him where he abandoned himself, where he chose fear over love, where he ran and believed you'd chase. But you didn't. Not this time. And the masculine, when truly faced with the void left behind by the feminine's absence, doesn't know what to do with the pieces. He thought he was done. He thought he was over it. He thought, if I stop responding, she'll disappear. But instead, the opposite happened. Your energy became unavoidable, because when you stopped chasing him in the field, your presence became pure. It became untethered from pain, untied from hope, unattached from outcome. And that kind of energy, it demands truth. It demands reflection. So now, even in your absence, he feels everything. And that's what breaks him. He didn't expect to miss the sound of your silence, the way your spirit used to whisper to his even when you weren't talking, the feeling of being seen, felt, known, without effort. But he misses it now, desperately, because now that you've withdrawn, he realizes you weren't holding space to manipulate or control. You were holding space because you loved him, and when you stopped, he was left alone with the parts of himself he tried to silence. That's the paradox of your silence. It's not empty. It's exact. It reveals what his soul has been avoiding, and now he has no choice but to feel it. So if you felt him tugging on the cord again, if you felt sudden waves of grief, confusion, or longing that don't even belong to you anymore, if you've had dreams of him collapsing, crying, or trying to speak, but unable to find the words, it's because he's in it now. He's in the dark room you once walked through. He's in the place where you had to rebuild yourself without him. He's in the same silence that once nearly broke you, but this time it's breaking him. And that's how the awakening begins. Not through noise, not through words, not through fights or confessions, but through the unbearable realization that the love he once took for granted was actually the thing keeping him together. Now he feels what it means to be disconnected from your light. And for the first time, he wants it back. But not just the version he used to receive. He wants the version that lives where you are now, whole, sovereign, and no longer available for one-sided love. The question is, can he rise enough to reach you? And are you willing to be seen in this version, not as the woman who waited, but as the one who walked away from reaching, so that he could learn how to feel? This is just the beginning of what your silence is teaching him, and the pain he's in is the proof that he's finally listening. Why he still feels you so strongly, it doesn't make sense to him. You're not reaching out. You've stopped sending energy. You've stopped hoping. You've even stopped praying for a sign from him. And yet, you're everywhere, in his dreams, in his thoughts, when he's doing the most ordinary things, in the quiet spaces between his distractions, when he closes his eyes to sleep, when he wakes up before sunrise with a tightness in his chest, when a song plays and he doesn't know why he suddenly wants to cry. He feels you, but not in the way he used to. It's deeper now, richer, unavoidable, because you're no longer projecting need. You're radiating truth, and truth always lands harder. Truth doesn't beg to be felt, it simply is. It's the vibration that lingers even after the noise is gone. And that's exactly what's happening now. He feels you more because your energy is no longer entangled in longing. It's clean. It's sovereign. It doesn't chase. And that's what makes it powerful. Your detachment activated something in him, not his ego, not his pride, but his soul. Because for the first time, there's nothing pulling on his field, no energetic hands reaching for him, no inner knowing that you're still holding on. And that absence, that stillness, it's a void that demands reflection. He feels the space you used to fill, not physically, not emotionally, energetically. And energy doesn't lie. He doesn't understand why he feels you more now that you're gone, but that's how it works. The moment the feminine stops sending, the masculine starts receiving, because it's in the silence that the message finally arrives. And the message is this: she was never trying to force anything. She was holding a frequency you didn't know how to meet. And now that she's let go, you feel the gap, you feel the depth, you feel the truth. Have you noticed that even though you're not thinking about him as much, you're still feeling sudden waves of energy that don't belong to you, that your heart races at random, that you feel watched, sensed, pulled, but not in fear, in memory? It's him, it's his soul recognizing your field, not because you're pushing it toward him, but because you're finally standing still. Your stillness creates a magnetic charge, one that doesn't reach outward but draws inward. He walks through his days feeling unsettled. He doesn't know why he's restless, why he's comparing everyone to someone he told himself he was over, why nothing feels quite as real, why everything feels more muted now. It's because he's finally waking up to what he lost, to what he pushed away, to what his heart recognized before his mind could accept it. You, not the version of you that bent to fit, but the one who walked away in truth, the one who stopped trying to fix, the one who chose herself. And ironically, that's the version he always needed you to be. Because this version, the one that's no longer attached, no longer waiting, activates something primal in him, not lust, not possession, but yearning, not for your body, but for your presence, your honesty, your love without conditions, now made even more sacred by the boundaries around it. He feels you feminine, and he can't turn it off, because your energy doesn't whisper anymore, it roars, not because it's chasing, but because it's anchored, and anchored love is unforgettable. That's why the silence is so loud for him. Because in the absence of your effort, he's finally left with the truth of what you were offering all along. He feels you so strongly now because you're no longer giving your essence away. You're embodying it. You're living it. And that embodiment is echoing in his soul. So if he's distant, confused, avoidant, it's not because he doesn't feel. It's because he feels too much. And he doesn't know how to hold it. Not yet. But your silence is doing what your words never could. It's helping him remember, helping him awaken, helping him realize that love is not about being pursued, it's about being ready. And that readiness begins the moment the feminine stops reaching and the masculine starts feeling. He's in that stage now. Not because you pushed, but because you finally stopped. He can't name it. He can't point to it. He can't trace it back to any specific moment or reason. But it's there. A dull ache in his chest. A weight that follows him everywhere. A sense of grief that makes no logical sense, and yet colors everything in gray. No one around him understands it. They see him smiling, functioning, working, distracting himself in all the familiar ways. But inside, he's unraveling, and he doesn't know why. Because in his mind, the chapter should be closed. You're not speaking, you're not reaching, you're not showing signs of waiting for him anymore. So why does it hurt now? Why does your name come to him in the quietest moments, not with anger, not with longing, but with something deeper? Why does your energy feel more alive now that you're not even trying to be felt? Because his pain isn't about your silence. It's about the reflection your silence forces him to see. He's not just mourning the loss of connection. He's mourning the version of himself that sabotaged it, and that he cannot explain. Because this isn't heartbreak in the way he expected it. This isn't, "I miss her," because you were good to him or because you made him feel wanted. This is, "I miss me," the version of him that was alive in your presence, the version of him that felt safe, held, seen, the version of him that dared to feel, even if it scared him. That version disappeared when you did. And now he's realizing it wasn't about just you. It was about what he became around you. And that's where the real pain is. Have you ever looked back and realized that being with someone didn't just make you happy, it made you more you? Have you ever felt grief, not just for a relationship, but for the version of yourself that bloomed inside it? That's what he's feeling now, but he doesn't know how to say that out loud, because the masculine was never taught how to grieve the unseen. He was never taught how to cry for energy, for connection, for something that never made it into the physical the way it was felt in the soul. And so, instead of speaking it, he suffers in silence. He overworks. He overthinks. He rewatches old moments in his mind like a silent film with no sound, trying to feel what he once rejected, and none of it satisfies, because he knows on some level that he didn't just lose a person, he lost a frequency, one that he can't find in anyone else, one that he didn't know how to honor when it was given so freely. He tells himself to move on. He tries. He dates. He distracts. He tells himself he's fine, but his body doesn't believe him. His soul doesn't agree. Because every time he hears something that reminds him of you, every time he feels that familiar warmth that used to radiate from your field, something inside twists, and he doesn't know what to do with that. He can't explain why the pain comes in waves, why it doesn't match the logic, why it doesn't obey the timeline he set for getting over it, because what he's grieving isn't over. It's alive, just not in the way he expected. And here's the part he doesn't admit to anyone. He's scared. Scared that he waited too long. Scared that you're gone for good. Scared that the connection he once dismissed might have been the only thing that ever truly mattered. But mostly, he's scared that he's finally feeling everything you once felt, and that no one is there to hold him through it the way you held space for so long. This is divine justice, not as punishment, but as rebalancing, because the soul must feel what it avoids. And your absence, your true, anchored absence, is the medicine his soul was always destined to taste. You're not doing this to hurt him. You're doing it because you healed. And your healing left behind a silence that cannot be faked, replaced, or ignored. So if you feel sudden sadness, if you hear his name in your dreams, if you wake up with tears in your eyes and no explanation, know this: he is feeling you. Not the version that chased, the version that let go. And it's that version of you, the one who rose, that his heart aches for now. He doesn't understand it, but he doesn't have to, because the soul always knows. And his is finally listening. He thought your stillness meant you gave up, that you had finally disconnected, moved on, turned away. And for a while, he convinced himself that was a good thing, that maybe he needed the silence to get his life back. But the truth is, your stillness didn't disconnect him. It revealed him. It mirrored him back to himself, raw, unfiltered, unmasked, because now there's nothing left to distract him from his own reflection. No energy from you to buffer the discomfort. No warmth to dilute the cold he feels inside. No one running toward him to soften the edge of his avoidance. And that's where everything begins to break open. He sees it now, not through words, not through conversation, but through the absence of what you used to give. Your silence became the cleanest mirror he's ever faced. One he can't shatter, one he can't avoid, one he can't run from, because it doesn't accuse him. It simply shows him. It shows him how he stayed small while you rose. It shows him where he closed his heart while you kept yours open. It shows him every time he turned away from love, not because it wasn't real, but because it asked more of him than he was willing to give. That's what stillness does. It doesn't chase. It doesn't defend. It doesn't explain. It just reflects. And now he's looking into that reflection and seeing himself clearly for the first time. No more illusions, no more spiritual bypassing, no more excuses. Just a man standing in front of the echo of the woman he once had full energetic access to, and realizing he never truly saw her until she stopped reaching. Have you ever stopped speaking, but still felt like your soul was screaming the truth? Have you ever chosen silence, not to punish, but to protect your own peace? Have you ever wondered if your stillness would be misunderstood as indifference, when in fact, it was the most loving boundary you could offer? He feels that now. He doesn't see your stillness as abandonment. He sees it as a message, one that says, I am here, but I am no longer shrinking to be held. I am still love, but no longer willing to pour into a vessel that leaks. I am still connected, but only from sovereignty. And that's what cracks his soul open. Because he expected you to collapse. He expected your silence to be a phase. He expected you to come back the way you always did. But you didn't. And that truth is louder than anything you could have said. Because what he sees now is the woman you've become in the absence of his validation. He sees your glow not as performance, but as embodiment. He sees your peace not as passive, but as powerful. He sees your silence not as absence, but as presence on your own terms. And that realization is devastating to a soul that only ever knew how to love through control. Now, he's face to face with everything you once felt. The waiting, the hoping, the aching confusion of why someone could feel you so deeply and still turn away. And it's shattering him, because in the mirror of your stillness, he sees what he cost himself and what he never learned how to receive. This is the sacred inversion. The feminine becomes the reflection. The masculine becomes the seeker. And in that reversal, all karmic loops begin to dissolve. Not through force, not through revenge, but through the silent alchemy of a woman who chose to stand in her light rather than dim it for love. That's what he's really feeling now. Not just the loss of you, but the weight of his own resistance, the ways he tried to bend the truth of your love into something manageable. But real love was never meant to be managed. It was meant to be met. And he didn't meet you. Not then, not fully. But your stillness, this sacred, sovereign stillness you've anchored into, has given him the very gift he never knew he needed. A mirror so clear, so silent, so unwavering, that he finally sees not just who you are, but who he is. And that changes everything, because now every decision he makes is filtered through that awareness. Every distraction loses its flavor. Every connection feels surface deep. Every excuse he used to believe begins to dissolve. Because your energy isn't gone, it's just no longer reaching. It's waiting, not for him, but for truth, for readiness, for resonance, for the version of him that doesn't need fixing, but awakening. And that awakening is happening now, not because of what you did, but because of what you stopped doing. This is the mirror you've become, and whether he chooses to rise into it or turn away once again, he will never unsee what your silence showed him. To the outside world, he seems fine, maybe even thriving. He laughs when he's supposed to. He works, shows up, performs. To everyone else, he looks functional. But you know better, because you've felt that kind of collapse before. The one that doesn't break bones, but breaks illusions. The one that happens not in the body, but in the soul. And that's where he is now. Not in physical pain, but in energetic devastation. A quiet, slow, undeniable unraveling, happening under the surface of his every word, his every step, his every breath. It started the moment he realized your energy wasn't coming back. That the signal that once reached for him, constantly, gently, lovingly, had gone silent. Not in resentment, but in resolution. And that kind of stillness is the most powerful thing he's ever felt, because it forces him to finally sit with what he avoided. All the things he tried to keep buried, all the fears he masked as detachment, all the longing he denied even to himself. They're surfacing now, louder than ever. And this time, there's no buffer. Your presence used to soothe his edges, even when he wasn't ready to show up for you. Your energy made him feel held, like love was still accessible, even if he didn't know how to receive it. But now, the field is empty, and without your warmth to shield him from himself, he's collapsing under the weight of everything he never faced. He can't sleep, not well. He wakes up too early, heart pounding, body restless. He avoids silence, fills every space with noise, distraction, people, anything, but nothing touches the ache. Because nothing reaches the place you once held. And that part of him, the part your soul used to sing to, is crying now. It's not the kind of heartbreak people write songs about. It's deeper. It's ancient. It's the collapse that comes when a soul remembers love, not as fantasy, but as truth. And realizing he turned away from that truth, that's what breaks him. Have you ever watched someone pretend they're fine while you feel their storm in your own chest? Have you ever sensed someone's ache before they even admitted it to themselves? Have you ever walked away, not because you stopped loving them, but because you finally loved yourself enough not to keep holding what they weren't ready to receive? That's the energy you carry now, and it's the very energy that's undoing him, because he can't hide from your reflection anymore. Even in your absence, it's everywhere, in the way others don't reach him, in the way nothing feels quite as alive, in the way every distraction feels thinner, hollower, less convincing. Your silence broke the illusion. and now he's sitting in the aftermath, trying to find footing where the ground no longer exists, trying to rebuild identity in a place where his defenses don't work anymore. This isn't karma, it's initiation. Because the divine masculine doesn't awaken through comfort. He awakens through collapse, through the dismantling of ego, through the gentle, unbearable ache of realizing the thing he ran from was the very thing he needed to become whole. He doesn't know how to talk about it. Not really. He may reach out with small phrases, indirect questions, subtle energy shifts, but beneath it all is a tremble, a shaking in the soul he can no longer deny. And you don't need to fix it. You don't need to explain it. Because this pain isn't yours to carry anymore. It's his. And the collapse isn't a sign of failure. It's the threshold of his becoming. He's in the dark night now, the same one you pass through in silence, in solitude, in surrender. And just like you once did, he will emerge different, but only if he allows the pain to purify what the ego tried to protect. That's the purpose of this moment. To strip away everything that kept him separate from himself, from you, from the divine. So if you feel him in the ether, if your heart aches for no reason, if your soul whispers his name in the stillness, it's because he's falling inward. And in that fall, he is finally facing the truth you held out to him all along. Love isn't something to be feared. It's something to be embodied. And until he learns that, truly, deeply in his bones, the collapse will continue. Not as punishment, but as invitation, because only in the breaking can he be rebuilt in truth. You didn't leave with rage. You didn't vanish to teach him a lesson. You simply stopped showing up where you weren't being met. You chose stillness, not because you stopped loving, but because you finally started listening to yourself. And that choice, quiet and profound, is what's waking him up now. Because it's not your love that haunts him. It's your absence, not the dramatic kind, not the kind that slams doors and makes announcements, but the sacred kind. The kind of absence that doesn't scream or explain. It just exists, calm, rooted, final. And it's that stillness, that mirror, that truth, which is doing the very thing your presence could never fully do. It's awakening him. When you were present, he felt safe, but also lazy. He felt held, but not responsible. He felt loved, but not accountable. And now he feels everything you stopped saying. Every need you silenced to keep the peace. Every boundary you didn't set for fear of losing him. Every ounce of energy you gave freely, just hoping he'd feel it and rise. He didn't, not then. But now, in your absence, he does. Because now there's space. Space for the echo of everything you once were to ring in his soul. Space for the longing to grow louder than the ego's excuses. Space for his heart to remember what his mind refused to understand. You were never trying to be loved. You were trying to be seen. And now that he no longer has access to your light, he's beginning to understand what he lost. But more than that, he's beginning to understand what he needs to become in order to earn it again. Because you didn't just walk away, you rose. And when a divine feminine rises, she doesn't lower her frequency again to pull anyone with her. She invites, she inspires, she radiates. But she never returns to what her soul has outgrown. That's the truth he's sitting with now. That's the ache he can't put into words. Not that you're gone, but that you're no longer available to the version of him that once took you for granted. And that's what shakes him awake in the middle of the night. That's what makes every other connection feel flat and lifeless. That's what brings tears to his eyes when he sees someone who even slightly resembles you. Not because you're perfect, but because you were real, realer than anything he'd ever experienced. And now that reality is gone, not lost, but evolved. It's in your silence, in your sacred no, in your embodied yes to yourself. And here's the wildest part of all. Your absence didn't push him away. It brought him home to himself. Because when the feminine withdraws with grace, the masculine is left with the only thing that can't be ignored, his own reflection. And in that reflection, he sees what he rejected. He sees the wounds he never healed. He sees the love he never learned how to receive. That's the awakening, not a lightning bolt, not a dramatic confession, but the slow, soul-deep realization that what he thought he wanted was never what he needed, and what he pushed away was exactly what his soul cried out for. So if you've been wondering whether your silence is being felt, if your stillness has made any difference, this is your answer. Yes, he feels it. He feels you. Not because you're trying, but because you're no longer trying. And that shift in you, that radical return to your own light, has become the very path he's now being guided toward. Whether he walks it or not is his choice, but your role is complete. You became the mirror. You became the call. You became the silence that finally screamed truth. And that truth is waking him up, one heartbeat at a time.